In this video, I'll be talking about the false ending of The Graduate and how the film was so ahead of its time, which in turn makes The Graduate the godfather of the coming-of-age genre. This is why I love The Graduate. If you enjoy video essays, consider subscribing. One of the elements that solidifies The Graduate in film history is the soundtrack. Firstly, The Graduate advanced the use of popular music to form a soundtrack, not a score, perhaps influencing films like Richard Arriardi's Submarine, that uses Alex Turner's songs to make the film's score, or David Fincher's The Killer, using mostly music by the Smiths. And secondly, the film wastes no time in bringing in the central theme, The Sound of Silence by Simon and Garfunkel. This song choice was impeccable, not only because it immediately gives the audience insight into the way Ben is feeling without a single line of dialogue, but it also sets up a musical bookend for the movie. To illustrate the point that I'll be talking about more later, that Ben never solves his problem. That is, what is he gonna do with his future? The Sound of Silence is played at the beginning of the film to illustrate Ben's problem, but when it is played again at the end of the film, it lets us know that there's been no resolution for Ben. Throughout the movie, the music fits perfectly on theme with Ben's state of mind, like in one of my favourite parts of the film, when the director, Nichols, is aiming to convey the passage of time. The song April Come She Will, again by Simon and Garfunkel, is used so perfectly with the scene. June, she'll change her tune. All of the soundtrack works perfectly with the movie, to escalate or de-escalate the tension in the scene. Any musical elements that is playing that isn't a part of Simon and Garfunkel's soundtrack is almost always external music or sound, as to not take the audience out of the film. Like this scene.
I feel very flattered.
Mrs. Robinson, will you forgive me for what I just said?
It's all right.
It's not all right. It's the worst thing I ever said to anyone.
Sit down.
Please forgive me because I like you. I don't think of you that way, but I'm mixed up.
Or this scene.
This feeling ever since I've graduated. This kind of compulsion that I have to be rude all the time. You know what I mean?
Yes, I do.
One last scene's sound design that particularly stood out to me was in the scuba diving scene. I love how almost all the noise is cut out. This really adds to the POV camera angle and makes it feel as if you're in Ben's shoes. The soundtrack and sound design of the film is perfect. One of the reasons why I think The Graduate is a masterpiece. Aside from the stunning Kodak film stock, shot on an Reflex 35 camera with beautiful Panavision anamorphic lenses, creating a colourful and visually striking movie, The Graduate cinematography is masterful. The director of photography on this film was Robert Surtees, known for his work on countless films, but most notably The Sting, The Last Picture Show, and of course, The Graduate. Every shot in The Graduate is like a painting. To add on to that, they use different filming techniques like match cuts, POV shots, oneers, double dollies, and most significantly, zooms in revolutionary ways. There's countless modern classics that take influence from The Graduate. Most obviously, Quentin Tarantino taking the opening credits scene and paying homage to it in Jackie Brown. Many might say Spike Lee popularized the double dolly shot. And yes, this may be true, but I think The Graduate is one of the major contributors in using this film technique because the double dolly shot had only been around for a little while before The Graduate used it, and I don't believe it was used so prominently before that. Another small detail I noticed that may have influenced modern films was when in the opening scene we see the words on a sign line up with the lyrics of the song, similar to how Edgar Wright uses this technique in Baby Driver. The Graduate also used the technique of a oneer very effectively. It's by no means the first or even an early use of this technique, but it's done so well I really want to mention that scene. It builds tension and anxiety and puts the viewer in Ben's shoes. The Graduate wastes no time. You've seen a lot of amateur short films or even feature films that the director wastes a lot of time on pretty shots instead of getting to the point and telling the story. In The Graduate, the film sets up the story very fast. It shows us Ben's stress and his conflict, and then introduces us to Mrs. Robinson straight away. Because what's the point of wasting time on a pretty shot? Great directors first tell the story, and whilst telling the story, they frame the shot beautifully and tell the story visually. An example of this is the first time we see Mrs. Robinson. There's a lot of negative space compared to the rest of that scene. And this could also be a visual metaphor. The frame is boring and empty, the same way Mrs. Robinson feels about her life. Through visual storytelling, within the first 10 minutes of the film, we know who the main characters are and what their internal and external conflicts are. And we learn this all mostly through visual storytelling. Another great example of telling the story through visuals is Ben's car. It's said at the start of the film that it's his brand new car. When we see him drive Mrs. Robinson home, it's shiny and very clean. But by the end of the film, it's filthy and beat up. This is again resembling Ben's state of mind. The last striking use of visual storytelling in The Graduate is the scuba diver toy in his fish tank. We see this little toy at the beginning of the film, and it resembles almost exactly when Ben goes scuba diving. I'm not really sure what this means, or what it's meant to convey, but maybe that's the point. If we're unsure of such a simple thing, how could Ben be sure of what to do with his life? The Graduate is one of my favourite films, especially its visuals. It uses a lot of film techniques, but not just for the sake of it. They're all used with intent and used to help tell the story. This is one of the reasons why I love The Graduate. The Graduate helped create the coming-of-age genre, and then it subverted it. This genre has produced some of the best films, like Boyhood, The Way, Way Back, or Dazed and Confused. It's also made some films that aren't quite as good. Yet all these films alike at least have some influence from The Graduate. But I think what most is varied from The Graduate's structure is the coming-of-age typical ending. Happy endings are very common, and that's not always true to the story. This is not to say that all films should have a bittersweet or sad ending, but I think many films can simply rush or force a happy ending just because they can. All of the best coming-of-age movies have something in common, and that is mostly bittersweet or sad endings. Or better put, a realistic ending. And making a realistic film is a true talent. A realistic film to me is a film that perfectly walks the thin line of dramatizing a movie and yet showing the small subtleties of life and how events and experiences will most likely unfold in the real world. And The Graduate does this with its false ending. It shows us one thing and lets us think about the rest, like what happens when they get off the bus. The film has ended, but to me, I keep thinking about what's going to happen to Ben afterwards. And it leads to conversations with other people that have seen the film on what they feel the true ending of The Graduate is. And this ending is one of the elements that makes The Graduate truly the godfather of the coming-of-age genre. Another element of this movie that solidifies its place in the coming-of-age genre is its story. The Graduate follows Ben. Ben's problem is that he's unsure of what he's going to do with his future. Ben comes from a wealthy family, he was at the top of his class in college, and now he must figure out his future plans. Figuring out your future is something that everybody goes through, and it can be tricky. This is a great plot device to illustrate the main themes. What is the themes? To me, it is less about figuring out your future, but more about breaking free from maybe societal norms, a toxic family structure. But I think most importantly, it's a warning to people like Ben, who might have an outburst of irrationality because they're unsure, unhappy, or unbeknownst to themselves, do something very irrational, like getting on a bus with a runaway bride. It won't fix their problems. Ben being unsure of what he wants for his future and wanting freedom from social pressures leads to great dialogue and subplots that help demonstrate Ben's unawareness of the topic of what he'll do with his life. It's a hard question. Ben avoids it right up past the credits. A great line of dialogue is this scene.
Ben, what are you doing?
Well, I would say that I'm just drifting here in the pool.
Why?
Well, it's very comfortable just to drift here.
Have you thought about graduate school?
No?
Would you mind telling me then what those 4 years of college were for? What was the point of all that hard work?
You got me.
It contains pretty obvious subtext, but it works really well for the story. Or another great storytelling device is the subplot of the affair with Mrs. Robinson. He uses this as any way to distract himself from the question, what will he do with his future? This isn't a film about overcoming fears and pressures. It's about succumbing to them. It's a warning not to make the same choices that Ben made. I really love The Graduate. It's a masterpiece in my mind. It's heartfelt, relatable, and uses all the film techniques in the playbook super effectively. For me, I give it 5 out of 5. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and leave a comment about what you thought about The Graduate. Thanks for watching. By the way, some tangents of mine don't make it into the full videos, so if you want to see a longer train of thought, check out this video.